And say right off the bat, I appreciate y'all having me. Really glad to be here and always enjoy coming. And, I appreciate y'all. It's quite an honor, I think, to be able to speak to y'all. The second thing I wanted to tell you is that how much Pete Peterson and I enjoyed, the thing at Harvard Grace. It was kind of tough to get Pete to go because Pete doesn't like to go north of the stoplight at Cape Charles. But I told him we had to do it to document things for the little children. So he finally fell in line, and he had a great time, and I did too. And it was appreciate y'all putting it on YouTube. Enjoyed watching it. And but Pete said, be sure to let y'all know how much he appreciated it too. The other thing I want to mention to you is, I don't know if any of y'all have seen this book. It's I think most of you would really enjoy it. DU did it, and the guy who wrote it, his name is Mark Petrie. He's a biologist with DU, and the fellow who edited it was a friend of mine, and he asked me to proofread the first chapter. And when I proofread the first chapter, I called the fellow who wrote it, and Mark Petrie, and told him, I said, I don't know you and you don't know me. I said, but I know you read Van Camp Hollander's book on duck shooting. I said, and that's as good a compliment as I can give you. But it's got a lot about, it's got probably the finest Canada geese you'll ever see in one group in this book. And so it appeals to people like decoys, but it also appeals to people that are interested in the life history of the Canada geese and Canada goose hunting, because it documents it from like the, hundreds, 100 years ago, or more actually. From Civil War on up, and the guy did a really good job. He's a biologist, but in my opinion, his real calling is being a writer. But keep a lookout for it, and I think you'd like it. And Bert said, "Well, you talk on whatever you want," and I thought, well, all I'm going to talk about. Joe Ingers has already told every secret I got in the magazine last month. And so when you're carving, one of the things I like about it, you got a lot of time to think. And when you're guiding, you've got a lot of time to think. Now sometimes you're in the blind or in the boat with the people and you got to entertain them, but by and large, and I like that because, I don't know, I just always was interested in different things and why this works this way and why that works that way. And, I used to look at the guys who would hunt with me and I'd say, now why is he here? What's he getting out of this? And, and then I'd think, well, what am I getting out of it? And I finally came to the conclusion. It was a Spanish philosopher named Jose Ortega Gasset, and he said that he wrote a book one time called Meditations on Hunting, and then he said that hunting was the ultimate intercourse with nature, and I think he is absolutely right. I mean, I love bird watching, I love all that stuff, but when I'm hunting, I'm in a different zone. I mean, it's altogether different. And I think that's the same thing, that's the reason why these guys were paying me good money to take them hunting. And because they crave that connection with nature, they didn't get it like I did every day, because, every day, one year I counted up, I guided hunting parties 72 days. The only day we took off was Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. And I couldn't, 3 o'clock come, my eyes would pop wide open. I was ready to rock and roll. And the other time I'd lay in bed till 11 o'clock and Dawn pushed me out. And, but it, I don't know, it was something about it that just really clicked with me. My father was a hunter, grandfather, and I think it's just something in the way we're hot wired, and it is, I think, the most intensive nature experience you can probably have, and that's the reason why I think guys paid me to carry him hunting. And you know, if it was somebody I didn't like, I think next year I was booked, and very few people that I did not like. I mean, I thoroughly enjoyed the people, carried all kinds of people, carried a guy who had to go get Monica Lewinsky's little blue dress, and I carried the guy who sent Virginia's Governor McDonald to jail, and one who worked on the Deepwater Horizon case, and one who was the first guy to ever bat in a ball game on TV, and just all kinds of people, and they were all a pleasure to take. And you know, the other thing I always wondered about was, anybody that knows anything about hunting, you know, decoys are important, but the most important thing is being in the right spot at the right time. And you know, I've tried all kinds of different things. You know, there's, I think so. I believe it's a shell duck I made out of a crab pot buoy down there. So I've made all types of stuff. You know, I've used tar paper, plywood, buoys, milk jugs, and you know, shot birds over all of them. But you know, one of the things that I always wondered about was, most of the guys who hunted knew that same thing that I knew, but yet why did they put so much work into their decoys? I mean, why? And you know, I think about that, and you know, I brought this decoy because this illustrates it about as much as anything I've ever seen. Y'all can look at it later on if you want to, but this guy, he's got a dovetail here, he's got this neck slotted in, he's got carved eyes, he's got depression between the wings, he's got carved wings, he's got a ridge down the back, he's got a ridge down the belly, he's got a dog bone weight. Why in the world did that guy do that to shoot a shell duck? You know, I mean, he could have taken a 2x4 with a 1-inch board and sawed out the silhouette of a head and probably killed almost as many. And so why did they do this? And you know, and not only did they did it, but they did it repeatedly. I mean, most carvers put a lot more into it than what they had to, and I think it's something in humans that you know, we have this urge to communicate things that we've seen, and I think that is part of it. I think we want others people to see what we have seen. I know I do when I carve, and I think that's the only explanation I can come up with of why that and the fact that they wanted to really pay homage to the things that they hunted, because to me hunting is almost like sort of a spiritual thing to me, and it always has been, and it wouldn't be worth it if it was otherwise. And I think, you know, when I carve, I want other people to be able to see the things I've seen, as well as be able to, you know, hopefully kill ducks. Because one of the things I really always enjoyed doing was making a rig of decoys, because to me, when you're making a rig of decoys, you're making a whole flock of birds. And hopefully you're making them so that they interact, just like looking here at you all. David Bundick's might fall asleep over there with his head like this, and you know, somebody else is probably over there making a bad face because they don't like something I've said, and you know, it's just a whole range of things, and that's what I like to do when I make a rig of decoys. And I mean, you can make a great decoy, and it can be great. But when you're making a rig of decoys, you know, it's one of those things where 2 and 2 equals 6, because of the interaction between them. And that's the reason why I've always liked the Cobbs, because they had, you know, they used a lot of root heads. And I've always liked to use root heads because you never know what you're going to get till you're done. And you can do so many things that you can't do with just a regular piece of wood. And I've always really enjoyed that. But you know, I can't tell you how fortunate I've been to be able to do what I wanted to do from the time I was about the size of this fellow right here. You know, I wanted to be a decoy carver and a hunting guide. And, you know, it was like thinking, you know, well, I'm going to grow up and replace Mickey Mantle in center field. And because all the carvers, you know, most guys start when they're in their teens or early 20s. Well, you have a generation that was lost to World War II, because when most guys are starting to carve, they were in the Pacific or in Europe, and then when they got home, they were playing catch up, and so almost all that generation was lost. But when I started carving, there were all these guys from the World War I generation. You know, when I started, Lem Ward and Steve Ward were contemporary carvers. Lloyd Tile was a contemporary carver. Miles Hancock was a contemporary carver. You know, and but they were all so thrilled to see a kid that was interested, because nobody else was interested. You know, you hear people talk about, oh, the Wards sold their stuff for nothing. They got nothing. They got what the market could bear at the time, because they weren't worth anything. You know, you got to have a willing buyer and a willing seller, and nobody was interested in decoys. I remember Hal Sorson published Decoy Collectors Guide. The first year he published it, a cousin of mine happened to see it and got me a subscription. And Bill Mackey wrote an article in there, and he was talking about, he thought that sometime, not in his lifetime, but sometime, somebody would say a decoy would bring $1,000. And it was like, yeah, right. And I mean, you could take $5 and buy a ward, a good ward, and you know, they weren't worth anything. And you know, I collected them because I loved them. I mean, I thought they were the neatest thing I ever saw, because when I was a kid, I always liked to draw and paint, and then when I got old enough to duck hunt, you know, and all of a sudden here's decoys, and the two things I liked best of anything in the world, hunting and art, they just went right together. And you know, I've been very, very fortunate to get to do what I wanted to do for the majority of my life, and I appreciate every customer I've ever had. Some I liked better than others, but almost all of them I thought the world of. And you know, a lot of them, I'm at the age where I know a whole lot more dead people than I know live ones. And I still have a Rolodex, and I go through it every once in a while. It's like you're visiting the graveyard. You know, he's dead. I'm not so sure about him, but he's probably dead, but not quite. And but you know, the last time I carried cigar anywhere, we went to the Meet the Carvers event down to the Barrier Island Center. And on the way back, Cigar said, Grayson said, I'm going to tell you the same thing my mother told me. Make all the young friends you can because the old ones are going to die on you. And I've tried to do that, and I'm very fortunate I got a lot of young friends and enjoy them all. Doesn't mean I miss the old ones any less, but you know, it's been a very, very good life for me, and my wife was involved, and you know, I was telling my granddaughter on the way up here about how my wife and I would set up shows, and I touched on her grandmother's disposition setting up a show, and how it was just fortunate that I was so easygoing. Otherwise, our marriage wouldn't have survived. But no matter where I put something, it was not the right place. You know, it might be here, but it needed to be there. And Western civilization depended on it being there. And why can't you see it needs to be there? And you know. I know Rick's laughing because he's seen it all happen, and but we thoroughly enjoyed it, and you know, got to meet so many good people and go so many places, and you know, all kinds of people that we would have never met before, and you know, when I was growing up, I was real shy, and Dawn is actually shyer than I am by a long shot, but you wouldn't know it if you talked to her. And as soon as we started making money making decoys, she liked decoys a lot better than she did before. And it was like, you get out there. You get out there. And of course, we were a very good team, because I used to tell people we work like the lions do. You know, the female starts them off and starts to chase off, and then the male just waits for the right time to pounce. And that's kind of the way we did. And you know, she was a very, very good at the whole thing. And you know, thankful if we make it to Christmas, we'll be married 55 years, and never an argument. Wait a minute. The rest that I won. And but I have, you know, my wife was a special ed teacher, and a young friend of mine in Edmonds, his wife is a special ed teacher too. And once you're a special ed teacher, you think different than other people. And it's like she only did it for about a year or so, because she got pregnant, and at that time they thought it was a communicable disease, and when you got pregnant you had to quit. And so she took off to raise Anna's mom, and then we started with the decoys, and she really never wanted to go back. But once you're a special ed teacher, you're always one. And my wife, she likes to talk to you like your little Grayson, the little guy in the second grade. He's not a bad boy. He's really not. But you know, he has this problem, and it's you know, he has attention deficit disorder, and you know, you try to explain things to him instead of getting mad with him. And so during COVID, of course, you know, everything changes, and my wife, she's got sinus bad. I tell her she collects paper towels, because she'll have about 7 of them next to her, and every once in a while one will get drop in the floor. So I finally came up with how to deal with her. I use reverse psychology. I just talk to her like she talked to me, and when she dropped something in the floor, I'd say, "Now I want to talk to you about something. Now I don't want to upset you, and I don't want to hurt your feelings. But you know, this has got to stop." And I said, now, you see this paper towel crumpled up here on the floor? Now, don't even try to tell me that you didn't know that you crumpled up that paper towel and you dropped it in the floor there. And you stepped right over it. And I need to explain something to you. When you do things like that, that means either my poor wife has to pick it up or I have to. And you just have to stop it. And finally one day I was doing it and she said, I guess I do sound like that. I said, yeah, I think maybe you do. And but my buddy, whose wife's a special ed teacher, he tried it with some dirty dishes and said she just looked at him like he was nuts. So, but anyway, it's decoys have fascinated me since I don't know how long. I mean, the first ones I ever remember seeing were my grandfather's Mason shorebirds. I didn't know what they were at the time, but they were in the barn, and sometimes I'd get them out and play with them. And of course, by the time I started collecting decoys, the barn had been torn down, and they'd probably been burned. But from the minute I started hunting, I've still got the first decoy I roamed, and killed the first duck I ever killed over it. And it was like these two things that I really loved to death. They just went right together. They fit perfectly. And, I've always felt like that a lot of the first art was actually sporting art in a way, because it was, there's paintings, all those cave paintings with the bison and the horses and the deer, and my golly day, you look at them and it's like, they're almost running. And I was reading a story one time about Altamar, I think, and there was this wild cow in there, and it was in a strange position, and nobody could figure out what's the deal with this cow. Why is it like this? And one day a Basque herdsman walked through and he said, oh, look, there's a cow having a calf. And, he recognized it immediately. And decoys have been so good to me. I mean, I don't know where in the world I would be if it wasn't for decoys. And hunting too. And I've loved every minute of it, almost. You always got to have something. It's like when I was carrying parties, but once every 2 years I'd get a jerk, maybe not even that often, but I always felt like the good Lord sent them to me to make me appreciate all the good people I had. And but it's I don't know of anything that you could collect that's you can get more pleasure out of and more enjoyment out of. I don't know of many things that you could put your money in that's probably a better investment. I don't know how many of y'all know Ron Gard, but probably some of you do, I know. And Ron Gard used to work for Shearson Lehman, and my wife was asking him one time, said, Ron, what do you think, if we get any money, what do you think we ought to put it in? He said, I've made more money with the money I put in decoys than anything else. And I have too, and it's and you can get to enjoy them and get to meet a lot of people, and it's just I've had so much fun it ought to be sinful, to tell you the truth, because I traveled for a long time with Ronnie McGrath and Bud Ward, and Bud Ward was one of the smartest people I've ever met on business. I mean, I graduated from Old Dominion with a degree in business management. I learned more in one trip to Chicago with Bud Ward by business than I ever learned from any professor I ever had. Things like the time cost of money, they'd teach you all this stuff, and Bud would say, Well, I remember one time he bought a crow plover, and he bought it for $10,000. He walked from about here to the doorway and sold it for $11,000. And Ron, on the way home from Chicago, Ronnie was saying, "Bud, you could have got more for that. You could have, you only got, you could have probably got, you could have made another couple, $3,000 on it." Bud said, "Ronnie, I know I could have." He said, "But if the first person didn't take it, I might have to wait a while, and if, you know, and I might have to wait a year or 2 years and get the extra $1,000 or $2,000. He said, "But I walked down to the end of the lane, end of the aisle, and made $1,000." He said, "Now I've got my $10,000 in my pocket. I can buy something else and make money on, and I've got $1,000 profit." That explained the time cost of money better than any professor I ever had. And you know, he was a genius at reading people, and I learned a lot from Bill Purnell too. Bill, you know, Bill's not the jolliest fellow in the world, and when him and I started buying decoys together, he said, "Assume everything you look at is a piece of junk." He didn't say junk. It was a little more explicit. He said, "And make it prove to you that it's not." He said, "Because if you look at it and you're assuming that it's good and that it's right," he said, "you've already lost at least half the battle, if not 3/4. And he said, "You may miss something every once in a while, but in the long run, it will save you a lot of grief." And he was absolutely right, because Bill Purnell is not no fool. I can guarantee you that. I've known him since I was about, I don't know, maybe 13 years old, 12, 13 years old, and he used to say, "Yeah, I could tell your mother, she would watch me like a hawk when I'd come down there, and thinking I was taking advantage of you." I said, "Well," I said, "she didn't do a very damn good job." I said, "You knew you could come down there with a beat up Dave Watson and a Hershey bar and get the best award I had." And but you know, we did a lot of business together, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. You know, it was, the dealers had a lot bigger share of the market, I would say, back then than what they do now. I remember one of the last trips I went on with Bud. I think we were up in Maine, and we were all sitting there in the room, and Bud said, "Boys," said, "you might as well realize something right now." He said, "All we are is barnacles on the bottom of the auction house's boat." And, you know, if you're a good dealer, you can still make money, but it's definitely harder than what it was then. And the auction houses really dominate things, and, you know, everything changes. Nothing stays the same. But decoys have been really good to me, and I think they'll be good to you all too. And you know, things like contemporary decoys, you know, if you don't have money to buy old decoys, you know, there are a lot of good contemporary decoy makers, a lot of them. And you know, years ago, people would tell me, "Well, I don't collect contemporary decoys." And I'd say, "Well, you got to remember, when I started collecting decoys, Lem Steve Ward were contemporary carvers. Lloyd Tower was, Miles Hancock was. You go on down carve read, and so at any rate, it's been good, and I appreciate y'all having me. And it's you know, I don't know anything. Well, women are more fascinating than decoys. There's no doubt about it. and I'm very fortunate to have the best. But decoys rank second, and ducks and geese and brant and swans, they're up there too. But if y'all got any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them for you.
Could we maybe get you to go through these when they do the thing?
Yeah, I sure will.
I'm sure Rod and Ronnie would like to help.
Yeah, John.
Where'd you find all your Cobb Island
All my Cobb Island decoys.
and your Cobb, the artifacts like from the hotel?
Well, it was this lady that lived down in Cape Charles, Miss Verna Cobb. She was married to Freeman Cobb, George Cobb's son.
Okay.
And
Seen
you know, she had like love letters from Elkanah Cobb, which nobody exactly figured out who these love letters were to and why she had them. But at any rate, she kept all the stuff from the Cobb family. Keys to the hotel, glass eyes, clay pipes, just shot glasses, Bibles, and fortunately she did. And Tommy ended up with a lot of it. I ended up with some. Bill Purnell ended up with some. She had some furniture that I feel pretty confident probably Nathan Cobb made, because he was a boat builder. Bill Purnell's got a desk that is New England Schoolmaster's desk is the style of it, and on the bottom it's got Cobb, and it's the same writing you see on like the Oyster receipts and that type of thing. And then I've got two tables that I think are just like little end tables, and like when he started the inn out on Cobb Island, which was called a Pilgrim House before he had the hotel, and he borrowed money from a local guy down there, and he borrowed some money from his relatives on the Cape, and the things that he gave his collateral was I think it was 2 or 3 duck boats and all apparatus, and I don't know how many guns, and I think it was 6 live brant and 2 live Canada geese. And then I've got how many tables he listed too. And I don't, nobody knows, but I tend to think it might have been one of those or the 2 that we've got. And, but, those guys, they could do anything pretty much with their, you look at their joints and the way they made their mortises and all that stuff, and they didn't have TV to watch, and YouTube and all this other stuff, and they made what they needed, and they were very good at it.
Who do you think are underappreciated carvers in your mind as you look at different makers?
I don't know. Of course, I'll be first to admit I'm prejudiced, but Miles Hancock, I think, is underrated. And of course, he was like a grandfather to me, really. I thought the world of him, and I've had a whole lot of honors, but one of the things that ranks up there at the top is that his family thought enough of me that they asked me to be a pallbearer for him and his wife both. And Miles Hancock, he was a very humble man, except when it came to his hunting. Now his hunting, he knew how daggone good he was, and he was proud of it. But his decoys, he used to tell me, he said, you know, so the first shell ducks I made, said, were really good. He said, and try hard as I could never make one that good again in my life. But when you put his decoys on the water, I mean, they look so much better than our Hudsons. And they look better than loads of other decoy carvers that, you know, rank way, way higher than him. I mean, they're not,
They hold up.
and they hold up. You know, they have thick necks and thick bills, and they were. He made me a whole rig of maybe a rig of black ducks. I think it was 8 shell ducks, a pair of golden eyes, and then I had 5 teal, and I've still got them. You know, wasn't all that many years ago that quit using them, and they, you know, he made them unpainted because you could buy them from him. You could buy them just carved out. You could buy them painted. You could buy them weighted. You could buy them weighted with lines, whatever you wanted. And I mean, his basic design was a thing, because, you know, a lot of people think of decoy carvers as being big hunters, but a lot of them weren't. I mean, our Hudson, you know, I knew Delbert Hudson very well. He built my mother's cabinets, and I've got a gun case he built. And he said his daddy mainly hunted shorebirds some, but he wasn't a big hunter, but he was a very good carver, and he was very artistic. But the thing with Miles Hancock, where he was such a hunter, he knew what birds were supposed to look like on the water. When he started marking hunting when he was 13, well, that's when he was doing it before then, but he started with authors. One of Author's ancestors, Lambert Jester, he was an old man, probably about Author's age at the time, and he was getting ready to quit, and the deal was, you help me, because most of the market hunters hunted in pairs, and you help me this winter, and at the end of the year, you get the decoys and all the boats, or the boats and all the decoys. And he said all the decoys were real early our Hudsons. I mean, if you looked at them, you would never even think that these things were our Hudsons. They were perfectly round on the bottom and perfectly flat on the top. And Merce Hancock said, when you put them in the water, said the only thing showed was the top of the back. And he said, when I started carving, said I just flipped them over and made them round on top and flat on the bottom. And they rode good. And they looked like ducks on the water. They really do. And so I'd say he's one of the most underrated to me. Anybody else got any questions?
How old were you when you remember meeting Miles Hancock?
I was probably 12. It was before the March storm. It was a while before that. That was '62. I knew him fairly well by then, and it was before the, movie Misty. I forgot when that was done.
It took a bit of effort to go from where you were to there, correct?
Yeah. Bless her heart, my mother was good to me. She took me around all over hell and creation. And of course, as soon as I got my driver's license, then I'd be going myself. And by that time, Sigard started carving, and Jody Budd was still alive. He was carving, and Carv Reed had just moved back to Chincoteague from up in Washington. And so, you know, it was a lot going on, and my father was a game warden, and of course I'd never met Cigar, and I was good friends with Miller Jones, who was a big picker for Bill Mackey, and him and Cigar they were like buddies. And Cigar kept telling me, Miller kept telling me, you need to go over see Cigar. So one day I rode over there, and Cigar was living in this little trailer. His shop was bigger than the trailer him and Lucy were living in. And I went right back and went in the trailer and in the shop, and it was 3 other Shinkatigers there, and one of them was named Boolam Clark, and my father and Jim Williams had caught him, I think, twice in 2 weeks duck trapping. Second time they basically let him go because they're afraid he'd have good pen. And so when I walked in, Cigar said, Boolam. I said, yeah. I said, you know who this guy is? He said, no. I said, he looks familiar. He said, well, he ought to. I said, because I know damn well you two are relation as many times as his dad has caught you. But they were all good to me, and, you know, I had a good time with all of them. You know, Cigar was always a big help to me too. You know, and he certainly knew birds.
Grace, you remember Mr. Miles used to carve at the carnival?
No, I don't remember that.
Well, my mom had a bunch of relatives, and we'd go over there when I was little. I'd see him. He'd sit back at a bingo stand between
Okay.
sit there and carve miniatures.
Yeah.
I've seen him do it, man.
I do remember hearing something about him selling stuff down there, but no, I'll tell you what, he was a good man. I mean, I tell people, there are plenty of carvers plenty of men were better carvers, but when any carvers were a better man than Miles Hancock. I mean, he was good to everybody. If you know, so. Any other questions?
Well, I've known Grayson most of my life, and Grayson used to spend a lot of time up our way. And he also, not just making decoys, he kept up with all the people up there and painting place and all that stuff. So anything you want to know from the 1970s that the collectors were doing and the hunting outfitters and all that, you got plenty to talk about, ain't you, Grayson?
I would probably be shot if I told it all. Some of the things I've seen, I remember the first year they had the showdown in Charleston. Bill Richardson and Bobby Richardson and Richard Drescher and I. Bobby rented a big mobile home and went down, and we were set up in the Mills house, and they don't allow any homely women out after dark in Charleston. And miniskirts have never gone out of style, along with spiked heels. And about the second day of the show, Bobby comes over to me and says, Grayson, I've known you long enough to know that you've got some hound dog in you. He said, and you can't sit here and tell me that watching all these good-looking women walk through here doesn't give you ideas. I said, yeah, Bobby, I'll admit it does. I said, of course, Bobby was going through his divorce by this time. And I said, but as soon as one of them ideas pops up, I said, I start thinking about what that idea got you, and it just goes right out of my head. And he said, you're damn right, and you're a whole lot smarter than I was.
I just knew you wanted to add one in there, Grayson. Many conversation hours we've spent, you know. When'd you do that?
I don't know, 2 weeks ago, I guess, my granddaughter, she's a good Baptist girl. She was a Methodist, but she got dunked. I explained to her that you had to be careful because the Baptists were decent people, but sometimes they got over enthusiastic, especially when they were converting them Methodists, and they might hold you under too long. But anyway, they do a lot of stuff. They build ramps and all kinds of things. Do a lot of good work, and I made that for their bazaar.
These a couple of this one.
73?
73.
Okay. Well, Arthur's daddy was building the motel, and he came over and wanted me to paint painting for every room. I never did get all of them done, and Arthur saved them for posterity. Bless his heart.
Well, it was worthy of being saved.
Well, I was looking at, I really do like that brand that's feeding there.
Yeah, that's good, man.
But, yeah, I can guarantee you one thing. By that time, I needed the money.
This is one of your earlier geese, isn't it, Grayson? About late
Yeah.
70s or something.
Let me see the bottom of him. Yeah, Cameron calls these the devil geese.
Devil geese.
Yeah, because I used the herder's eyes, you know, the amber eyes, and so the eyes look red. And Cameron always called them the devil geese, and I made a dozen of them for Eben Waterfield. And you know, Eben at the time had probably one of the best goose shooting places on the shore. I mean, it was unreal.
Yeah, outside of Chesapeake.
It was so easy, it wasn't even any fun.
No.
But I made them a dozen. I think that's one of them.
Yeah, that's one that belongs to me. And then I brought this one here. This is one I think I showed you this one time.
Yeah, I don't remember when I did that one, but I would have probably been just well off slash my wrist because I don't think I've done one better since. You know, that's about as good as you're going to find of one of my geese, I think. I've got one that I own that's a similar head position, but it's not near as nice as this one.
Well, that's great by any standard, Grayson.
It's a beauty.
We got two pairs of these.
Yeah. About 10 years ago, I always did a lot of stuff with the South Carolina Waterfowl Association. I used to go down there and put on, you know, teach carving class for them or give talks and things like that, and got to be real good friends with the guy who was president, Dave Alecki. And he did his graduate work up on the Delta Marsh, and while he was there, Ted Turner was there, and he guided him, and he went back to South Carolina with him and managed his properties, and then he talked him into giving him seed money to start the South Carolina Waterfowl Association, which is probably one of the strongest ones in the country. And he, for years and years, he kept saying, I want you to come up and go gunning with me, because he owns a place up on the Delta Marsh. And so P.G. Ross, you know, guided with me. He went to Clemson, Dave went to Clemson, they had the same teachers and all. And so we went up there and hunted with Dave for about probably about a week. And we didn't really hit the peak migration of canvasbacks, but I made 18 to carry up there, and I kept these 4. And PG made some stuff, and I think Pete sent 3 dozen bluebills for us to use, and it was a different experience. I'll tell you what, if I had a film of PG and I, we stopped the second day we were on the road because it's about 1,800 miles one way, and we made it to Fargo, North Dakota, and we went in a restaurant, and I knew there was no need to try to get a Dr. Pepper. I just gave up on that, but I figured, well, that night I can get a Diet Pepsi. So I was trying to order a Diet Pepsi. I may as well have been speaking Swahili. This girl, she could not understand anything I said, not one word. And PG goes to France to give talks on oysters in San Francisco. She couldn't understand anything he was saying either. Now, once we got in Canada, they could understand us. But anyway, I kept those two, or those four.
That was different.
Okay. I sort of remember that, but that's been a good while ago.
80.
That was your pond over on Aspen.
Let me look at it again.
It's dated, Grayson, that'll help you. 80.
1980. Yeah, it's probably one of those ponds, but yeah, that's better than what I remembered. It's nice to see things that are better than what you remember.
You were hunting snowies pretty early on.
I was there the first day they were legal on the East Coast, and
I got that from a Kalana man, Grayson. I don't know if you remember that Kalana. He was
Jimmy Kalana.
Jimmy Kalana. His
Yeah.
hands were deformed.
Yeah.
He had that picture. Brought it up to the Snow Goose show.
Okay.
Bought it from him.
He used to do a lot of flea markets and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're solid.
Who they belong to, by the way, Gary?
They're solid cottonwood teal, and
You know, with keels, that's. I never seen any with keels, that's
well,
why I asked you about it today.
I think I made those for Jack Milne down in Jacksonville, Florida, to gun with, and they're solid, and I put keels on because he was going to gun them, and
Use those hardware store screw-in weights, yeah, that you could buy almost everywhere.
no, I had a
Or you
actually they came off a 36 Ward pintail. I had two of them,
Right.
and
That's what
they had to screw in weights.
They were hardware store weights that you could buy back then.
And I made a mold
You made it.
and made those, and still got the mold.
Yep. Got it.
Nice little curlew here, whose is this?
That was a class that Grayson gave over at the Ward Museum
All right.
years ago.
Remember that?
Early 2000s, and it had snowed the night before, and we carved that bird. And then Grayson said that had one student who'd gotten down with like 600 grit sandpaper, and you could just about shave in that thing. No paint on it. Grayson said, okay, now we're going to age it. Went outside with that snow and the mud and rubbed it all over. I thought that man was going to cry.
We're doing the simple method.
That's what we wound up with.
I think I'm a much better teacher than I thought I was.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, looks good.
Yeah, it does look good, doesn't it?
All right, Wood Ducks, 1996, who do they belong to? Okay.
1996.
96.
Yeah.
It was hard to decide what to bring, but they're the ones I like looking at.
Yeah.
No stories, you never shot over them, nothing.
No.
Wood ducks, widgeon, and gadwall were some of the things that I made that I kind of put off making because, it's hard to paint a wood duck and not make him look gaudy, because, but really when you look at him in real life, he's not that gaudy, but when it's awful easy to make him look gaudy. And so they're some of the last things that I really started making. And widgeon were were about the same time, because that widgeon breast collar is, I mean, that's hard to get that right. And gadwall, I mean, you got so much going on with them.
But you probably had plenty of reference material hunting up there with Drescher. Seen a lot of wood ducks up there, weren't you?
No, I never hunted wood ducks up there with him.
Didn't you?
No, I hunted geese with him a lot. But, you know, I grew up during the time when if you killed a goose, you carried him around until his neck started to stretch. You know, you were so proud of him. But,
Yeah, he was in a good natural spot.
yeah,
That's true.
yeah.
Boy.
Yeah, I had a whole bunch of these, and I had, I think 3 dozen teal and 1.5 dozen shovelers, and I had just little lines about like this with little, you know, little Ryan sinkers on them. You could pick the whole bunch up and just walk out in the pond and start throwing them everywhere. And I mean, they looked really good. And some of the best brand decoys I ever had as far as hunting over were ones I made like that with, now they had regular heads.
We haven't done these mallards, have we? No. There's a nice look. Whose mallards are these? Go ahead, tell us about them.
This is, I found those about probably 2 or 3 months into collecting. I went to a antique show in Richmond. They had a tag, it said Grayson Chesser Bacon Bridge. I had to look you up on my phone. And I said, I love these. They're the favorite, my wife's favorite decoys in the house. So.
I'm not sure who I made these for, but you know, as far as my mallards go, I think they're pretty good ones, really.
Well, true to his statement that he makes them by the rig, different positions and different attitudes.
Well, how many decoys you think you made in your lifetime, Grayson? I don't think I ever did ask you that, and I know that's the question.
I don't know. I imagine 4,000 or 5,000. I mean, you know, I've been doing it for so long.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
I'll bet it's a bigger number than that, Grayson.
It might be. You know, counting silhouettes and things like that. That's something I never made too many of, was gadwalls. I mean, old squaw.
We're kind of in the golden eye category here,
Yeah.
too, and we got a pair of
Good transition.
Jim Gray Fagle.
Yeah. This was golden eye hen was the second duck I ever shot. And the first one was an old squaw. And of course, I had to eat both of them.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when I started lying, because I told my mother how good they were.
Is there any more of his decoys? I think